Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us again this week. We have another amazing topic to talk about at our wealth building education session. My name is Tawana Rivers. This is the 10K Project. For those of you who may have just stumbled upon us, we have an amazing guest tonight, Ms. Frenika Lightborn, and we want to talk about how to leverage your IRAs and your 401ks to invest in alternative investment opportunities. As you guys know, we are a wealth building opportunity, and typically 10K Project has been bringing the deal flow to the community. But as we're looking at, how we fund these particular deals, if we come together and utilize group economics, if we are accredited or non-accredited investors, all of these different ways that we can think about how we come up with the money to invest in the amazing deal flow that we bring you here at the 10K Project. We oftentimes talk about using IRAs and 401ks, but never have we had someone who specializes in that area come and talk to you about exactly how you can do that and exactly why it's important that you consider this as a way to leverage those accounts to invest. So today, instead of us being amateurs on the topic, we brought you someone who knows all the things about the topic. So Frenika, so much, we're appreciative of you joining us tonight and spending your time. We recognize how important time is. We think it's the most important thing a person can give. And so for you to give of your time to this community, we're so very grateful. And thank you so much. If you could introduce yourself to the community and then talk to us about why investing is important and why it's important to leverage these accounts to do so.
Absolutely. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to both of you. Thank you to 10K Project for just allowing me to come in to knowledge share with you. And I'm just excited just to, talk anything and everything related to self-directed IRAs. It's truly one of the most impressive tools you can have in your toolbox to build wealth, to create that legacy. And of course, utilizing your IRAs and 401ks to do just that. So I do have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm happy to screen share that with you, but we'll deep dive into everything related to self-direction. If you have questions, feel free to stop me as we go, or just put those in the question box. We'll get those answered. Or if you have questions afterwards, you're always welcome to reach out to me. If I can, let me just share my screen. Just bear with me one moment. Okay, give me 1 second. Are you able to see my PowerPoint?
Not yet. Starting now.
Yes. Okay, you can see.
I see your desktop.
Okay, let's. Just bear with me, my apologies.
Hey, you're fine.
Stop sharing. Any luck? Are you able to see?
There now. Yep, we see it now.
Okay, perfect. So again, we're going to talk about using IRAs to invest in alternative assets. I'll specifically focus on real estate, just because I know that's typically one of the preferred investment strategies most of our clients use, or where most people typically start. Just a little history about me in terms of who I am. So I've been with Advanta as a employee since 2019. So going on almost 6 years now, but I'm also an Advanta IRA client. So self-direction, well, prior to joining, I've been with Advanta as a client for about 8 years. So this is something that I actively do. So I advocate for it both personally and professionally. Happy to just every day just talk about anything related to self-direction. I recently just wrote a book called The Power of a Self-Directed IRA, just to kind of break it down and, just more digestible, easy, 1, 2, 3 ABC type steps for new investors to the concept of self-direction. Again, after today's call, if you have questions, you're always welcome to just reach out to me via, email, or you can give me a call or just go to our website, advantaira.com. It's a great resource for you, everything related to self-direction. Also, Tawana, if you have questions too, again, just feel free to interject and kind of ask away. I do have to give a quick disclaimer. Just know that all of the information presented today is just for educational purposes. Our role at Advanto, we don't give our clients any tax, legal, or investment advice. So we always encourage you to, you do want to do your due diligence. You want to consult with your professional teams. You want to talk to your advisors before making any investments. Another thing, I know this can be a lot of information or it can be a new concept for most people. So just know that, just think 3 key takeaways. Any IRA or former employer plan, like an old 401k, qualifies to be self-directed. The beauty with self-direction is you're in control. So you get to decide exactly what is it that you want to invest in. We'll focus on real estate related case studies, but you have a pretty much a long list of different things that you can use IRA funds to. And then, of course, all of the income that's generated from that investment flows back into your IRA. If there's any related expenses, let's just say you have a rental property, you have to pay property taxes, or you have to pay a contractor, it's actually paid from the IRA. A little housekeeping about Advanta, and history about Advanta, I'm sorry, is we've been in business for about 22 plus years now. So this is something that we do. We're the experts in. Our team is comprised of attorneys, certified IRA service professionals. We have a little over $3 billion under administration. Here in the Atlanta office, but our corporate office is located in Clearwater, Florida. And then, of course, our focus is just providing you that concierge style service, that direct point of contact where you have an assigned account manager. And then, of course, providing you that great educational content where we come on platforms such as 10K Project and just knowledge share with you in terms of everything related to self-direction. So if you've never heard about self-directed IRA, it's not uncommon. The big banks and brokerage firms, we know that their business model is stock, bonds, mutual funds, but in reality, self-direction has been around since the 70s, so since 74, since the inception of retirement accounts. Currently, I think when I looked at the statistics, there's about maybe $42 trillion sitting in retirement accounts. And of that, less than 4% of it is actually truly self-directed. So that's a great way or great opportunity for you to leverage and tap into, if you're looking to pool funds or raise capital for your next project, this is a viable opportunity or viable source of funding for you. So exactly what is a self-directed IRA? Just very simply, it just means that you as the account owner, you're going to have complete control over your retirement funds. You have complete control over the investment decisions. You essentially get to diversify, again, outside of the traditional stock, bonds, mutual funds. You can use IRA funds to invest in the likes of real estate, whether that's going to be a fix and flip project, or you're going to invest in, tiny homes or storage units. But you can also use IRA funds to invest in precious metals, private equity, meaning, small private businesses. You can invest in digital assets like cryptocurrencies. The list goes on in terms of what's on the table for you. I'll talk about some of the few restrictions when it comes to self-direction, but essentially you have a blank canvas when you use IRA funds. A question I typically get is, why do people choose to self-direct? For you, you can look to self-direct for many different reasons. One of them, I know, again, it can be a new source of capital. So again, if you have funds sitting in that old 401k or you have an existing IRA, instead of tapping into your rainy day fund or taking out a bank loan, you can elect to use IRA funds, or you can elect to, go out and solicit and raise funds from, the typical 9-to-5 person who may not have the time or the bandwidth or the expertise that you may have as, as a real estate investor, but they do have old 401ks just sitting idle. 2, the stock market, the ups and downs, the volatility in the stock market. We know that real estate, it's a tangible asset. It's always going to retain value. People are always going to need a place to live. With the stock market, something overseas can impact the stock market, whereas, again, real estate, tangible, you can elect to use some of your funds to diversify, purchase or rent a property inside of the IRA. And then, of course, the tax benefits, having those rents, those profits, those dividends flow back into your retirement account, tax-free or tax deferred. So if you were to go to the IRS website right now, you won't see the term self-direction or self-directed. You'll see the account types that you're already familiar with, which includes for individuals, traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs. If you are a small business owner or an entrepreneur or a 1099 contractor, you can certainly look to self-direct a SEP, simple or solo 401ks. A lot of real estate investors particularly like the solo 401k just because you have greater flexibility, you have higher contribution limits. So it gives you a greater flexibility in terms of doing real estate deals. And then, of course, some smaller or lesser dollar accounts that are just as important are educational savings accounts. So if you have kids, you can elect to use those IRA funds to, grow those accounts, but also pay for their, their high school, college, so forth. And then, of course, having a high deductible medical plan, you can self-direct an HSA. We know with the increasing costs of living, but also the cost of medical care, if you have a high deductible plan, that's a strategy you definitely want to implement. The only thing to be mindful of, if you have a current employer plan and you're not 59 and a half, then most times they'll restrict you from moving it. But if it's an old employer plan, or you're older than 59 and a half or older, which is the retirement age per the IRS, you're able to move those funds. Traditional, think of it, pre-tax, you get the tax break up front, you grow your account over time. Those distributions, when you take those distributions, you'll pay taxes at that particular point. Whereas with the Roth IRA, if you elect to pay the taxes up front, grow your account over time, as long as you've held that Roth IRA for at least 5 years and you're 59 and a half, those distributions would be tax-free. In terms of funding your account, there's a couple ways you can do that. For existing IRAs, let's just say you have an IRA at Fidelity or Charles Schwab, you can transfer as much or as little as you want to or need to. There's no tax liabilities for you to do that. In that particular process, Advanta IRA as the custodian would actually submit that request over to the other custodian on your behalf. The only thing that you need to make sure is whatever dollar amount that you want to move, just make sure it's in a cash position. So if it's currently tied up in stocks or bonds, you would have to tell them to liquidate before we can actually move those funds over. The other way that you can fund your account is, again, if you have an old employer plan, whether it's a 401k, 403b, or TSP type plan, you would actually have to initiate that request in that scenario. It's still a tax-free movement of money, meaning there's no personal tax liabilities to you. You would actually just reach out to your old employer plan to say, hey, you want to move funds, you're not taking a personal distribution. They'll just move it from one retirement account over to the next. And then, of course, the other way that you can fund your account or use it in combination with a transfer or a direct rollover is by making an annual cash contribution. So as long as you've earned income, the IRS allow you to make contributions to your account. Depending on the type of account that you have or your age, the contribution amount varies. So for traditional and Roth IRAs for 2025, the amount stayed the same as for 2024. So if you're under the age of 50, you can contribute $7,000. If you're over the age of 50, you have an additional $1,000 where you can possibly put up to $8,000 in that account. For SEP, simple and solo 401ks, again, those are the employer type plans where if you're self-employed or have a small business, with SEPs and solo 401ks, those are the high dollar accounts. For SEPs, if you're under the age of 50, you can put in $70,000. For solo 401ks, you can put up between 70,000, 77,000, or possibly 81,000, depending on your age. The $81,000 amount, I know, again, that's a high dollar amount, but between the ages of 60 and 63, starting this year, they just allowed that additional catch up. So just keep in mind solo 401ks, if you're eligible for it, meaning you have a small business or a side business with no employees, you have the ability to, every year, as long as you can show you made that amount through your business, contribute those amounts. For ESAs, you can put in 2,000 per year per child. For HSA, again, depending on having a high deductible plan, you can put in a 4,300 or 8,500, actually 8,550 for a family plan. Another thing to keep in mind is if you're over the age of 55, I'm sorry, you can put an additional $1,000. So again, accounts where you have high dollar contributions. You can have multiple accounts. Let's just say you have a traditional IRA and maybe an ESA and a solo 401k. You can elect to partner all of those accounts together to go out and do deals. And we'll talk about some deal structure as well. Just bear with me. Is that a question? Oh, sorry. So there's a difference between contributions and earnings. So contributions, again, it's capped on, well, it's based on first and foremost having earned income, but also the amount that you can contribute each year is based on the type of account and your age, whereas your earnings are unlimited. So an example of that, let's just say you have, an HSA account or an ESA account that you elect, let's just say tax lanes is a strategy you wanted to employ, and you have 2,000 in an ESA account for your child, and you elected to use that $1,000 from that ESA account, and you bought you won a tax lien bid at the auction, and it's for a vacant lot, and you end up with the ESA, I'm sorry, end up with that property, and you then weeks later, months later, depending on which state or which county that you're in, and the ESA end up selling that property for 10,000 or 20,000. So now you just took $1,000 in your child's ESA account and was able to acquire an asset, in this case, vacant lot, through a tax lien sale, and then was able to then sell that property. So you can rinse and repeat that strategy, allowing you to, again, take those funds to cover educational expenses for your child. So that's just one scenario, but you can use multiple accounts to do deals or partner together. Just bear with me one second. So keep in mind when using IRA funds, you don't want to take the funds out of the 401k. So let's just say you have an old 401k and you wanted to invest in real estate. Instead of taking the funds out, or if you do take the funds out, now you're subject to taxes, whether that's 20 to 30%. So you just lost additional purchasing power. Whereas if you were to keep that money inside of the 401k and then go out and buy 123 Main Street, you're not subject to any additional taxes. So in this example, we have Bob. He has 100,000 in an old 401k that he rolled over into a self-directed IRA, and he had the ability to then go and purchase that property as opposed to doing it personally, and now you're subject to taxes and capital gains. So I mentioned earlier, there's a long list of different things that you have the ability to do in the IRA, whether it's investing in real estate or private equity or something else. The IRS, however, do have a few rules and restrictions that you have to be mindful of. The only two things the IRS say that you cannot invest in is life insurance and collectibles. Collectibles being anything like antique art, wine, stamps, anything of that nature. Outside of that, you essentially have a long list of different options. The other restriction that typically where we get most of our questions is who the IRA is not allowed to transact with. And the IRA is not allowed to transact with someone who's considered a disqualified person. So this is going to be a mouthful, so just bear with me. A disqualified person is the IRA account owner, their spouse, any lineal ascendants or descendants. So just think parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren. So just up and down the ladder. And then any spouses or any spouses of your children or grandchildren. Also, any business or entity that's owned or controlled by the retirement account. So just think the IRA is not allowed to transact with someone who's considered a disqualified person and they're on the opposite sides of the table. So for example, that would be if your IRA, you can't take money from your IRA and lend it to your spouse, or you can't lend it to mom and dad. Or if your IRA owns a rental property, 123 Main Street, you can't live in that property. It has to be for investment purposes only. You can't rent it out to your kids, your grandkids. If the IRA if your dad can take money from his, personal funds and lend it to your IRA if you're short on a deal. You can partner with anyone that includes yourself or your spouse, but just think the IRA it becomes a prohibited transaction if the IRA is on the opposite sides of those lineal ascendants and descendants. Another thing in terms of prohibited transaction is you're not allowed to do any of the sweat equity. The IRA is not the IRS is not beating down your door to see if you're the one that's mowing the lawn or, swinging the hammer on a deal, but on a property that's owned by your IRA, but you can oversee everything. You get to decide what needs to get done, but you can't be the one that's actually physically doing the labor. You have to hire it out to a third party. So I tell clients, there's a lot of rules. There's a lot of leeway, but there are some rules you have to follow. So for example, if you're driving, the light says red, you stop. If it says green, you go. There's many different paths to drive from East Coast to West Coast, but you do have to follow some driving rules. So same thing with self-direction. You don't have to be the expert. That's why that's who we are. You can reach out to us if you need clarification on, or reminders on the IRS rules. But just keep in mind, if you know the rules or if you have, you don't want to put yourself in a prohibited transaction because it would subject your, I'm sorry, excuse me, it would subject you to your IRA to possibly being, disqualified. I'm sorry, just bear with me 1 second.
I've got a question, Renika. So in thinking about what you just talked about, right, all of those disqualified persons and the transactions you cannot do, you should not do. When you say if found out, then the IRA can be deemed disqualified. What does that mean? So if the IRA, using the real estate example, if the IRA owns an apartment building, right? Or I'm the owner of the apartment building using the IRA funds, and we find out I've transacted with a disqualified person, what does that penalty? Oh, your next slide was going to answer my question.
Yeah, so and my apologies, it's been a long day for me, so
That's okay.
trying to
No
keep
worries. No
my energy
apologies
up.
here.
But no, that's a great question leading into the next slide. So you own your retirement account. Yes, you control your retirement account, but you have to think of it as its own separate person, its own separate entity. So, the IRA owns the investment. You're the manager of, you get to dictate and determine, exactly what is it that the IRA get to invest in. If you were to do a prohibited transaction, whether it's on purpose or inadvertent, there are severe penalties when it comes to the IRA. The solo 401k has a little bit more flexibility, or you have more opportunity to correct it. But if you unfortunately were to do something prohibited in the IRA, like if your IRA owns a rental property and the IRS find out that you're living in that property, then in actuality, your IRA ceases to be an IRA. You would have to distribute the entire account, so the value, the assets, and then of course pay taxes and penalties. The taxes and penalties, it varies, but it could potentially be up to 100% of the value of the account, and possibly in certain scenarios, the IRS can also add an additional 15% penalty in an IRA scenario. So there's a difference between IRA, whereas if you were to do something inadvertent or prohibited in a solo 401k, they do give you flexibility or the opportunity to correct that error. As opposed to in an IRA, it'll actually, again, cease to be an IRA. At the solo 401k, they'll allow you to fix that error and they'll just look at that specific transaction.
No, that's great information. We oftentimes hear real estate investors, gurus, self-appointed or otherwise, talk about how, you buy the property, you live in the property while you're fixing it up, and then you flip it and buy something else and do that over and over again, right? And so I love that you've talked about this, because for the people who have that in their plan, they just may not be able to use an IRA to fund that particular deal.
Yeah,
if that is their plan.
Yeah, like that's the burn method. So you can do that, but you cannot do that particular strategy, meaning live in the property. It has to be for investment purposes. Your IRA can certainly buy a rental property and lease it out to your cousin, a friend, or another, unrelated lineal ascendant or descendant. But again, even if it's a family friend, or you still have to make sure that it's in the best interest of the IRA. So for example, if the rental rate is $1,500 a month, you can't lease it out to your sister for, $300. You're just being a good sibling. You still have to, whatever the market rate is, lease it out of that, rent it out of that particular, yeah. Another thing, let's just say your IRA cannot lend money to mom and dad. Your IRA can lend money to sister, brother, and then you cannot lend it to sister, brother, and then help sister, brother turn around and lend it to mom and dad. Because the IRS is going to look and say, hey, what was your intent? Was your intent always to get it, to your mom? So you just have to be mindful that keeping the IRA, at mind, meaning what's in the best interest of the retirement account.
Very good.
Okay, so real estate investing means many things to many different investors. We have clients that, again, pretty much invest in different types of real estate related strategies, whether that's, lending or investing in tax liens or tax deeds, or investing you mentioned a multifamily or an apartment complex. You can certainly use IRA funds to do a single family home, or Airbnb, short-term rental opportunities, or you can do joint ventures. Private lending is really big in using IRA funds. Some things to be mindful of when using IRA funds, especially when it comes to buying real estate. If the IRA is the only party that's, investing or putting funds in, then the investment itself, the property itself has to be titled in the name of the IRA. So for example, it'll be Advanta IRA FBO, which is for benefit of John Smith, his IRA account number 1234. The IRA have the ability to partner with other people. So for example, let's just say John, the property is 100,000, John's IRA put in 50,000, and somebody else's IRA or someone else's personal funds put in the remaining 50,000. In that scenario, it's tenants in common. The IRA would reflect as 50% owner. The IRA in that scenario will receive 50% of the income. You're responsible for 50% of the expenses. If the IRA, again, is putting 100% of the money, it owns 100% of the asset, pays 100% of the expenses. When it comes to paying the expenses, with us, our clients have the ability to upload an invoice or an expense, a bill pay expense through their online portal with us. They have an assigned account manager, so they can direct that over to us. We'll get it processed within 24 to 48 business hours. You don't have to have a property manager, but if you do, the property manager in that scenario is responsible for collecting the rents and paying the bills. And then, of course, subsequently sending the remaining funds back to the IRA. Anytime money is deposited into our client's account, they get an email notification, but they also have access to that online portal. Again, when it comes to repairs or maintenance, you can't do any of the sweat equity. The client can oversee the project. They get to decide what needs to get done, but they would have to hire it out to a non-disqualified person. Same thing with, renting. The IRA, you could decide who you want to rent it to, as long as it's not a disqualified person, but meaning you would actually negotiate the term of the lease. You'll decide who is the point of contact if they have an issue. Let's just say they need to get some repairs done. They'll reach out to you, or if you have a property manager in place. And then, of course, having those funds, those rents, those flow back into the IRA. So the tenant can send the funds directly to Advanta to be deposited into your account, or to the property manager. Or in some scenarios, we've had clients where their tenants are paying via check. They send the check to the client, and then the client elect to redirect it to Advanta. The client cannot deposit that check into their personal funds, but they're using that method just because they want to ensure the client is paying on time. So when it comes to investing with self-direction, it not only allows you to invest in what you know, so whether it's real estate or some other strategy that you prefer, it also allows you to invest with whom you know. So again, you cannot transact with someone on a disqualified person, but you can partner with them. So let's just say mom and dad, want to invest with you, meaning your IRA puts in funds and their IRA or they also put in personal funds. That's different. You're both sitting on the same side of the table as buyers. So you can elect to, if you're part of a real estate group, or you're part of a local RIA group, you can elect to pool funds and do deals together. And now I'll transition and take a look at some of the case studies. Just bear with
Anika,
me.
before you get into the case studies, I've got a question, and we've got a couple of questions in the Q&A. My question is that, well, there's a part of me that understands the rules of the disqualified
Mhm.
parties, right? There's the other part of me that I'm trying to think about the logic that was used to make this rule, because it feels like this is a great wealth building um, opportunity, but then these limitations could prevent some wealth building within the nuclear family, because it excludes, from being able to do some things that could advance the building of wealth. Do the regs state some of the logic on why why the rules are the way they are?
Because in that scenario, the IRS wants you to, think about these funds are for retirement, it's for later, it's for when you retire, so they don't want you to personally benefit from it today. So
Okay.
that's the stipulation. The goal is to actively or passively save for the future. So whether you're retiring in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, that's the key restriction. But you can, there's ways to structure the deal to where it makes sense. So let's just say most people, they may have most of their wealth, sitting in a retirement account, but they need to they need to live today. So that's a
Mhm.
common question I would get, like, hey, what's the point of me doing all these deals in my IRA and me not being able to use it today? I got to pay my bills today. So I would tell someone that in that scenario is maybe, like, let's just say you do, two deals a year, like a fix and flip, like you do, fix and flips, throughout. But maybe your second or third deal you do in your IRA to allow you to still actively grow your account. And then, outside of the retirement account, that's you actively have an earned income to live and survive. But that third or fourth deal or every other deal you elect to build up for your retirement account. And again, you can pool funds. You can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to put some of my personal funds in this deal and then some of my IRA funds. In that scenario, whatever the IRA puts in, it gets back. So maybe on a deal, the IRA only put in 20% of the money. Well, 20% of the profits from that transaction will flow back into the IRA. So there's different ways you can structure it. You can partner with, anyone. So you can say, hey, you know what? I have some money in my account, you have some money in your IRA account, we're just gonna pool funds. So there's just to be mindful of how you're structuring the deal. But overall, the goal is to get people in the mindset of saving for retirement.
No, very good. It gets tricky and confusing, but that's why you need a partner like Advanta to kind of help you strategize, because otherwise we get ourselves in a bind trying to figure this out by ourselves. So thank you. This is
Oh,
good
you're certainly
information.
welcome. And I see there's another question inside the
Yes.
chat, so just bear with me.
Oh, I'll read it for you. Anonymous says, if one used a self-directed IRA to buy a rental property, will the income go only into the IRA? And I think you've answered that.
That's correct. So if the IRA is the only party involved putting in money, then the IRA owns 100% of that property. 100% of the profit's going to flow into the IRA. Um, Another question that typically comes up is, well, what if I don't have all of, like, let's just say if to buy a property, let's just say, for example, it's 100,000, and what if you don't have 100,000 in the IRA? How, can the IRA still buy? There's different ways to structure, but you can elect to use loan or leverage. In that scenario, it has to be a non-recourse loan. I know that can be a mouthful. A non-recourse just means that you're not personally guaranteeing the loan. It's the actual IRA that's taking out the loan. The lender's not looking at your personal finances or credit history or anything like that. They're just looking at the actual property, the investment property itself, and it's the IRA that's acting as the borrower. So let's just say property is 100,000 and your IRA elect to put down 30% as a down payment and then take out a non-recourse loan for the remaining 70,000. Perfectly fine. And fix the property up and sell, well, the IRA fix the property up and sell it. 30% of the profits flows back into the IRA without any tax liabilities, because that's the amount that the IRA put down. The other 70% of the profit in that scenario would be subject to what's called UDFI tax, unrelated debt finance income tax, but that's one way to use leverage to buy a property. Even if your IRA had all of the money to buy the property outright, you may want to, spread the money out and buy multiple properties. So that's one way to scale. Another way, it's again partnering with other investors who may have IRA funds or, personal funds to go out and do more deals.
Nice.
That same scenario in a solo 401k, that solo 401k would not be subject to that UDFI tax. So that's why a lot of real estate professionals like using solo 401k if they're eligible to do real estate deals, because instead of paying that UDFI tax, it doesn't apply. UBIT still applies, but not UDFI in a solo 401k scenario.
Right. Shawnetta asks, she says, so you must purchase the property outright with the IRA if you aren't allowed to use the IRA for the down payment and then personally guarantee the mortgage.
So if you have all of the money to purchase the property in the IRA and you choose to, you can do that. If you don't have all of the money to purchase the property, you would have to use, you can source the funds different ways. You can have the IRA put in X amount of dollars, and you can go out and take out a non-recourse loan for the remaining amount, or you can go and partner with others who have money, whether it's personal funds or IRA funds. The IRA don't have to put in 100% of the money. If it doesn't have it, you would have to then go out and get a non-recourse loan or partner with other investors who have money that want to, partner together. So it just depend on how you structure the deal.
Very good. All right, the case studies.
Yeah, so there's two ways essentially to invest in using IRA funds. You can do it directly through the IRA or indirectly through an LLC. Directly just means that the IRA is purchasing, meaning you open up an account with us, you fund your account with us, and then you tell Advanta to send the money to the closing agent or closing attorney. So that's directly. Indirectly is your IRA opening up an entity like an LLC. You're the manager of that LLC. The IRA is the owner of that LLC. And then you have the LLC go out and purchase the property. So in this case study, it's just talking about purchasing real estate directly in the IRA. Just bear with me 1 second. So in this particular study, we have Joe. He want to use IRA funds. He first and foremost goes through the process of completing our application, which can be done online. He can fill out the paperwork within 15 to 20 minutes. He's going to transfer funds from his existing IRA or old employer plan. Will get his account open pretty quickly within that 24-hour timeline, business hours timeline. So in this scenario, Joe, he has to go out and find the property. Advanta doesn't have a list of investments for clients to choose from. Joe works with his local real estate agent or his group of investors and identify, whether it's door knocking or just working with wholesalers. He identify and put in an offer to purchase a property in the name of his IRA. So it's not Joe that's purchasing the property directly, personally, it's his IRA. Joe has to approve, give consent that he wants to purchase this particular property. Advanta is going to do everything based on his direction. Once he identify the property, let us know who is his closing agent or closing attorney. Advanta will essentially submit the funds over to that closing agent on behalf of Joe's IRA. Joe reads and approves everything. I'm sorry. And then, of course, at the end of that transaction, so let's just say it's a rental property. Joe's responsible for finding the tenant, and then, of course, the tenant sending the funds back to Advanta for the monthly income for the monthly rents. Joe directs us to pay all of the expenses, whether that's maintenance, property taxes, insurance, and so forth. He can upload those invoices through his online portal with us. And then, of course, for Joe, he elects to have the IRA hold that property indefinitely and just have those monthly rent incur into his IRA for the duration of his account. The next case study we have is private lending. So this is a pretty popular option for a lot of investors. And I tell them, whether you have a small dollar account or a large dollar, or much more, just start wherever you feel comfortable. In this scenario, we have David, him and Sonia, they live in the same community. David, had a chance to talk with Sonia, who's looking to pretty much invest in a storage unit, buy a storage facility in their area. And David decided, he wants to invest $100,000 from his IRA funds to help her get started. It's David's responsibility to do his due diligence and Sonia make sure he feels comfortable with that investment. After doing his due diligence, he elected to put in the $100,000. They've negotiated to where his IRA is gonna get 10% interest. And then, of course, after 12 months, Sonia is going to honor her agreement and then pay his IRA back in full. Sonia receives the capital that she needs to help her purchase that storage unit. David's retirement account, in this case, his IRA generates an additional $10,000 in earnings over that 12-month period. So essentially, he gets to act as the bank. When you go to the bank, they're going to tell you exactly, how much they're willing to lend you, the interest rate, the term, the length of the term, and of course, if there's any late fees or penalties to be mindful of. So essentially, David and Sonia has an agreement that outlines the terms of the agreement, the amount, the $100,000, the interest rate, 10%, 12 months. Again, with having a smaller dollar account, you can do partial notes, you can do, full notes, you can partner. Again, partnering with spouse or disqualified person is allowed as long as you're both sitting on the same side of the table. You can invest in tax liens or tax deeds. Again, tax liens, depending on which county you're investing in, there's great opportunities there. You can do real estate options as well. In the next case study, we're going to look at a rental property. We have John. He has an old 401k, and he decides he wants to use those funds to purchase a rental property. He goes through the process of getting his account open with us. He's responsible again for finding that property. He works with his real estate agent, identify an opportunity, purchase the property, finds a property that's available for $200,000. He puts in an offer to purchase that property in the name of his IRA. He submits the purchase authorization, giving us consent to essentially send the funds to that closing agent or closing attorney. Nothing happens until John says it does. He reads and approves everything. At that point, Advanta works with the closing agent and then sends those documents, sends those funds over to purchase the property. Advanta, as the custodian, as the administrator, actually signs the documents on behalf of the IRA. Advanta also holds the deed and the copy of the investment property documents on behalf of the IRA. And then, of course, because it's a rental property, Advanta receives the incomes and pays the expenses based on John's direction. In this particular strategy, John elected to hold the property for 2 years, and during that time, he was able to rent it out for $1,500 a month, where his IRA collected $36,000. After that 2-year timeline, he decides to go ahead and sell the property for $275,000, which should allow his IRA to make a profit of $75,000. So because he did this deal in his IRA, that $75,000, he's not subject to any capital gains. And now he has over $300,000 in his IRA to where he can go ahead and rinse and repeat that strategy. This one is a fix and flip scenario. So again, we have clients that do fix and flip as their preferred strategy. With fix and flip, you do have to be mindful to make sure, per the IRS, when you use IRA funds, it's usually for passive investing. With fix and flip, you can certainly do that in your IRA, but you want to make sure that you're not doing, 10, 20, 100 different flips in your IRA, because per the IRS, it can look as if you're operating a business in your IRA. So you want to be mindful of that. In this scenario, we have David. He goes out and finds a distressed property in his local area. And he decides to put in an offer using IRA funds for 150,000. He expects it's going to require 25,000 in upgrades. Because this is a cash deal, meaning he has all of the funds in his IRA, he's able to close pretty quick. And again, he's not doing any of this, the sweat equity. He's overseeing everything. He decides, what needs to get done. In this case, he decides, hey, I'm only going to put $25,000 on my IRA. He's only going to put $25,000 in repairs. He hires the contractors and make sure, to stay on top of them, to make sure that they're doing their scope of work and keeping on schedule. He goes through the process of, finding the property, opening up his account, signing, giving consent by signing the purchase authorization forms, negotiating with the contractors in terms of who's going to actually do the work, and then working with his real estate agent to actually sell the property. Advanta, as the custodian, ensures that everything is properly titled and vested in the name of the IRA. Advanta receives and stores the documents on behalf of the IRA. And then, of course, there's payments to be paid. So in this case, the contractors, Advanta pays it on behalf of the IRA. In this scenario, David invested a total of 175,000 from his retirement account. And then, of course, he elected to fix it up, was able to sell it for 225,000. And then, of course, all of those funds flows back into his IRA. So that the 50,000 in profit, again, goes back into his retirement account, tax-free or tax-deferred, depending on a Roth. A Roth is tax-free if, again, as long as he's had that account for 5 years and he's 59 and a half. So now David can elect to, essentially rinse and repeat that strategy. The last case study we'll take a look at, I think I have one more, is undeveloped land. So this is another, again, if you have smaller dollar accounts, you can certainly you look to use this as a preferred method. So Susan, she has 50,000. She rolls over 50,000 from an IRA to purchase a vacant lot. She's going to purchase it for 40,000. She goes through the process of opening up her account with us. She finds the property. So she puts in an offer to purchase that land. She submits the purchase authorization to us, reviews and approve all the documents. And then, of course, Advanta works with her preferred closing agent, make sure signs everything on behalf of the IRA, and then wires the 40,000 to purchase that vacant lot. After closing, all of the expenses such as insurance and taxes is paid by the IRA. So that's why Susan elected to, leave 10,000 to cover those related expenses. So Susan's IRA is now the owner of that particular property. It's titled, again, Advanta IRA FBO, which is for benefit of Susan Smith's account number 1234. In this scenario, she can elect to use the IRA, that lot to grow timber. She can rent it out to a farmer. She can, build storage, have an IRA build storage units, mobile home parks. It can be, maybe it's a oil and gas property that she can lease out. So there's different uses when it comes to purchasing land in the IRA. She can elect to maybe sell it to a developer, a year from now, 2 years from now. The very last case study we're going to look at is investing in a syndication, so an apartment complex. This is pretty popular with IRA investors or old 401k. They're passive. They can elect to pool their funds. So we have John and Rebecca. Rebecca has 50,000 in an IRA at Vanguard. She meets John at a local RIA group. She's responsible for, again, making sure to do her due diligence, saying that, making sure John is a senior investor. He's done deals in the past where she's able to talk to some of his investors and, again, make sure she's okay with proceeding. John provides her with the subscription agreement outlining the deal. In this case, it's a minimum of 50,000 to invest. Rebecca, she goes through the process of opening up her account with us. She get the funds moved over or transferred from Vanguard. Again, that's a tax-free movement of money. There's no liabilities for her to do that. Advanta will submit the request over to Vanguard on her behalf to move those funds. Rebecca worked with her Advanta account manager to give authorization. It's actually per title in the name of her IRA. She's not using her personal social security number, is actually titled or using the Advanta IRA Trust Tax ID. Going forward, the agreement that John and Rebecca agreed to is he's going to pay his investors 8% preferred distributions. 4,000 goes back to Rebecca's IRA each year. So for 5 years, the project is then refinanced. Rebecca IRA received the lump sum of 65,000. So over that time, she's earned 20,000 in preferred distribution plus 15,000 in profits. She can again rinse and repeat. If John's, she's comfortable with John, she can go ahead and do, invest in his next deal. For us, the process is pretty straightforward. Our clients have 3 simple steps, which is, step 1, when they're ready to proceed, they can fill out the paperwork to get their account open. Again, it can be done relatively quick, within 15 to 20 minutes. We'll get their account funded, whether it's through transferring from an existing IRA, direct rollover from an old employer plan, or making a cash contribution. And then finally, what is it that you're interested in? Today, we just focus specifically on real estate, but, are you interested in investing in precious metals? Are you interested in investing in a private company stock or something else? You essentially have a blank canvas when it comes to using IRA funds to invest in alternative assets. And that brings me to the end of my presentation.
Very nice. I love that the Advanta onboarding process seems very easy and seamless. Couple of questions. Can you invest in international deals using your IRA?
Absolutely, you can. We have clients who invest in South America, Europe, so forth. You can certainly use IRA funds. The only thing to be mindful of is finding out what that local jurisdiction requires. They may require that you use an LLC in their, that's equivalent in their area, but yes, you can use IRA funds to invest overseas.
Very good. And with Advanta, we talked about the onboarding process, but what are the fees associated? Looking through your presentation, Advanta is doing a lot to help manage this account. What are the fees associated with that management?
A great question. So one of the highest in the industry in terms of cost, but not the lowest. Our focus is that concierge quality service for our clients. There's 3 main fees. When you look at our fee schedule, it'll list everything, but it may or may not apply to the client based on, if they use it or not. The 3 main fees is an opening fee of $50, so 50. That is an upfront charge. They'll pay it by card. But once the account is open and funded, they have the ability to select or have future fees deducted from cash in the account and not charged to the card. The other 2 main fees are the transaction fee. So think of it when you buy or sell. In this case, it's either $95 if it's a paper investment, meaning something other than physical, tangible real estate. If it is physical, tangible real estate that your IRA is purchasing, then it's a $145 transaction fee. And then on an annual basis, because we have to do all of the record keeping, all of the IRS reporting, we do give our clients 2 options. Option 1 is per asset. Option 2 is value based. Most times clients go with generally option 1, just because they only have one investment that they're holding at one time. So if they're buying physical, tangible real estate, then it's $345 to annual to record keep that specific asset. If it's something other than real estate, then it's $295.
Reasonable.
Option 2, value-based, meaning let's just say someone have multiple investments they're holding at the same time, or they're moving in less than 15,000, then it's, it behooves them to select option 2 because it'll be cheaper than paying per asset. It's just a flat fee based on the value.
Very good. Sounds like very reasonable rates, in my opinion.
Definitely. It's obviously we tell clients you want to, again, you can elect to shop around and compare pricing, but we're not the highest, we're not the lowest. We're just focusing on making sure that you have the best customer service experience.
Very good. Any other questions for Renika? Tishan, did you have any questions?
No, I think it was a thorough presentation. It gives you a lot to think about when you think of the magnitude of what an IRA could do, because that was always the first question is like, what do I do with it? You never know. And you just kind of default into just let me put some stocks or some bonds, and you kind of go for the lowest hanging fruit, so to speak. Whereas if you knew that you had these options and the optionality to kind of leverage it in different ways, I think that's really, really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell clients too, it's just an additional tool in the toolbox, meaning you can just start with, a portion of your account. It's not end all be all. So let's just say, hey, you're part of an investment group or a real estate group, or just, you're around like investors, just take a small dollar percentage from that account and just test it out. Just no one's going to be a better steward of your money than you. So meaning, hey, if you have funds just sitting idle, at some point you have to, you have to look in, I'm sorry, you have to, essentially decide that I'm sorry, I'm working on 2 hours of sleep after
That's
getting in
okay.
at 2 o'clock this
Okay. We
morning.
appreciate you taking your time with us today, so it's all good.
All of Delta flight was delayed and I'm literally just,
Oh, goodness.
but essentially, yeah, no one's going to be a better steward of your money than you. So you want to be an active participant, meaning, hey, knowing that you're going to retire in whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, just take baby steps. You don't have to be an expert. You have companies like Advantage to where you can reach out to us to get familiar with the process, get familiar with the IRS rules, but you do want to actually get started.
Yeah, very good. I see we've got another question. Anonymous says, can you explain the difference between a SEP and solo 401k?
So SEPs and solo 401ks, like if you have SEPs, if you have employees, you're able to you're able to offer a SEP for yourself or your employees. With a solo 401k, you're only eligible if it's you, a spouse, or a business partner. So not having any employees with a solo 401k, or if you have employees, they cannot work over 1,000 hours with a solo 401k. So if you're self-employed, no employees, solo 401k. If you have employees, then a SEP would be the other option for you. But they're both employer sponsored plans. And SEPs and solo 401ks. So historically, solo 401ks, you have the ability to have a Roth component. Now with a SEP, you also have the option to have a Roth component built into your SEP plan as well.
Very good. Any final questions for Renika? All right. This was amazing. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be educated on how to utilize these funds. Here at the 10K Project, we bring, like I said, a lot of deal flow. And sometimes the minimum is a little higher than people may have readily available. And what we found is that people were just saying, oh, I just can't get in on this one, forgetting that they had these accounts, right, that were waiting to be utilized in just this manner. And so we really thought it was important to bring someone educated in the area so that the community can be well informed and have someone to reach out to. So I love that you put your contact information back there. Everyone take a screenshot, take a picture. You'll get the replay in your email, so you'll have it to go back and listen to this again. We'll also be posting it in the Facebook group for others to see. We are, in my opinion, and this is not financial advice, just my opinion. We are at a time where I think we need to be mindful of the assets we have, and we really need to be paying attention to them right now. And sometimes you may need to make some decisions that allow you to be better positioned. And so this training, in my opinion, was very timely. Because we need to be watching these accounts, for not forgetting we have them there, but definitely watching them and maybe choosing to do something different with them than we have been in the past. So, Renika, thank you so much for educating us in this area. We really, really appreciate it. We will share your information with all, even as we're, talking about different deal flows, and people are asking us questions about IRAs and 401ks. We're going to send them your way. And we thank you so much for spending time with us this evening.
Oh, you're certainly welcome. Thank you for again having me on. I wish I had more energy, but I appreciate the opportunity to come and knowledge share. I did see another question pop in the question box.
Oh, okay. Anonymous said, instead of drawing funds out of my IRA, can I use it as collateral to draw a loan from and repay the loan? Since loans aren't considered taxable income, can I also use those funds for non-retirement?
So great question. So there's a difference with IRA and solo 401ks. If you have IRAs, you can't you cannot use your retirement account as collateral. If you have a 401k or solo 401k, there is the provision that allows you to take out a loan from your 401k or solo 401k. You obviously do have to repay that loan for the 401k. You have typically 5 years to repay it, or if you're using those funds to purchase a personal home, you can possibly extend it up to 7 years. But with a solo 401k, you do have the provision to take out a personal loan and use those funds to do whatever you choose. Obviously, if you're investing and you take out that loan and you invest it and you get returns, now you're subject to capital gains plus you're repaying the loan. So just depending on what you're looking to do. If you're just looking to take out a loan because you need to, take your personal expenses, it's perfectly fine with a solo 401k or a 401k. Just repay it. With an IRA, you're not able to take out a loan from your IRA. With a Roth IRA, you can take out your contributions at any time. But if you take out anything above that earnings and you've not had that account for the Roth IRA for 5 years and you're not 59 and a half, then again, you're subject to taxes and penalties.
Good. Let's see. Okay, that was all the questions.
Okay, thank you again for allowing me to come in and knowledge share. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a wonderful evening. We appreciate you. And there's no Bet on Black pitch tomorrow, everyone. No pitch tomorrow, but we will see you guys soon. Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone. Get some rest, sis. Thank you so much for coming and sharing some time with us.
Yeah, I'm just tired. I got home like 2 o'clock this morning after.
Yeah. Get you turn off the phone, turn off the lights, and get you some rest.